Welcome, everyone. My name is Stephen Halasnik, and I'm co-founder and managing partner of Financing Solutions. Financing Solutions is a leading provider of lines of credit to small businesses. Our line of credit program is fast, easy, inexpensive, and costs nothing to set up, making it a great cash backup plan for your business. If you'd like to learn more about our line of credit program, please visit us at fscreditline.com. That's in FS as in Financing Solutions, creditline.com, or give us a call at 862-207-4118. Remember, the time to set up a credit line is when you don't need it, so that when you do need it, you have it and ready to go. And I would tell you from personal experiences over 25 years of me building 6 companies, I can't tell you how many times I was either one, happy I had my line of credit in place, or 2, wishing that I had put it in place. So it always catches an entrepreneur by surprise when they're about to miss payroll, which is like one of the worst sleepless nights that you possibly can have. So it's something for you to consider. Again, that's fscreditline.com if you want to get some more information. Today, I am excited to be speaking with Steve Kidd. Steve is an international best-selling author of several books, a third-generation minister, and has been coaching business people to success for over 30 years. In fact, Steve actually started selling at 5 years old. His show, Thriving Entrepreneur, which is a podcast, brings best-selling authors and successful entrepreneurs from around the world to you each week. The biggest blessing of Steve's life is that turning point where what was an obstacle becomes a powerful message. When he shared this message, not only he has helped other people become published authors, but turned them that former block into powerful and transformational opportunities for the people we are meant to serve. Steve feels it is so much fun helping bring new authors into the world and making them best sellers every single day. Steve, welcome to today's Entrepreneur MBA podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So today's topic, which another great topic that we have, is how being an author can help you and your business. And it wasn't until recently, would you agree, Steve, that it was much easier to be a self-published author. Would you agree with that?
Oh, for sure. I mean, there's been some software out there. CreateSpace, before Amazon bought them out, was about 10 years ago, but much easier to be seen as well as to get your book out there.
Yeah. I guess so. I'm somewhat of a self-published author too. I wrote a chapter in a book that became an Amazon bestseller, and we'll talk about that along with you, Steve. But and that wouldn't have been possible, I think, prior to 5 years ago. Maybe it's 5 years. I mean, where they've just made it so much easier for you to really come out with your own book. And tell me a little bit about how you kind of got involved in this idea of self-publishing.
Well, it's a fun story, actually. So my daughter, on her 18th birthday, her and her mom loved the movie Twilight. This would have been 2007, the original Twilight movie. And we lived near Portland, Oregon. The first movie was filmed all in and around there. And so they went on a girls' trip for her 18th birthday to go see all of the filming locations. They blogged about it, wrote about it, and I helped them be able to put that into a book, which self-published and was, back in the day, the #1 travel guide selling on Amazon for movie tour locations. And it still sells a little bit. I mean, I still make probably $20 or $30 a month off of it, even to this day. But that's how I got started in it.
Wow.
From there, we discovered the power of being a best-selling author.
Yeah. Well, what do you think? So let's talk about when you say the power. What do you think the power is?
Well, I mean, first of all, I know statistically that best-selling author is the number one influencer credential, bar none, in 2021. It outshines PhDs. Even my medical doctors, in fact, would be the first ones to tell you that being a best-selling author gets them more credibility and more airtime, for example, than being a doctor in their same field for the last 20 years.
So let's take a part of that out of it and discuss it, and that is best selling. So let's take out of the best selling and just say the value of just being an author. I mean, for anybody out there, what are you saying now that people who have self published a book, what's the value to them that you're seeing?
Well, author is an instant credibility thing. Um, even with there's a million books that were published in 2019. I haven't seen the statistic yet for 2020, but I'm sure it was way more than that. But it still is about 3.5 to 4% of the people in the world that actually ever publish books. So it still is a very unique and rare kind of a thing. And when somebody writes, takes the time to write and publish, even self publish the information, it gives it a level of credibility that just, some guy on the corner spouting off something he knows doesn't really have, even though it may be the same information. It's just an instant psychological credibility, if you will.
Yeah. Now you started writing books before it was you could really become self published. Is that correct?
We self-published our first book. I mean,
Oh,
technically
you
the
did.
first, yeah, I mean, technically the first 6 months or so, it was actually self-printed as well. I had a magazine that I actually printed that was part of the company that I owned, and we printed it off of that machine for about this first 6 months. But no, CreateSpace in 2008, 2009 was around. I'm not saying that it would have been for everybody, but having a technology background, it was relatively well. It was actually really difficult to do, but it was doable.
Yeah, yeah. Now your first self published book is more was a fiction, correct?
Well, no, it was a travel guide. So
It
for
was
the
travel. That was the travel guide. I'm
yeah
sorry.
travel
Yeah,
guide,
yeah.
yeah. And then my personal, the one that I wrote, first book was a self help book.
Okay. What was the self help book? Its title.
It's called 10 Things You Must Have to Succeed in Life and Business.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So, why did you kind of move in that direction? Let's say more for the second book. Why did you kind of uh, decide that you wanted to write the book, and what was the value that it came out? What did you see?
Well, even still with the second book, um, I wrote it actually originally for to be an opt-in for my webpage. That was what it was intended to be. Was going to be 1 or 2 pages. It ended up being about 110, way too long to be a free giveaway. And since I had by that point began to learn how to put books out there, I turned it into a book and put it out for sale.
Yeah, yeah. And what did you learn when you did the book? What did you learn in all the different areas and related to that?
Well, so there's a lot of things. First of all, I mean, even today, statistically, the average book, that's across all books. So I'm talking Tony Robbins and all of the sales he makes versus the person who only your mom buys your book. On average, the average book sells 40 copies ever in its lifetime. So just putting a book out there doesn't necessarily mean much other than that, you do have a book out there. But what I know, and that's why, I'm always talking about being a best-selling author, is the credential of best-selling author is the modern day equivalent, like in the early 80s, getting your PhD would have been. So much so that because I'm a marketing
Yeah.
company, because I have been a marketing company since '88, it got to the point where any of the clients I was working with, if they didn't have a book, I needed to have them be an author and be a best-selling author in order to market them the best I could.
Yeah. So either from your experience or from some of the clients that you've worked with after they've completed writing their book or whatever, chapter, book, PD, a bigger PDF. Um, what have you heard their comments about it? What have they said?
Oh gosh, I mean, it has been life transforming for some people. Um, One of my authors, his name is Carl Michelle. He said to me, this was about 6 months after his book came out, and he said, it's really cool now because now I don't allow people to introduce me as just Carl Michelle. I am international best-selling author Carl Michelle. Um, I had one lady. She actually had applied to be on a podcast 9 separate times and been rejected. And the only thing that she changed in her 10th time was she put on there that she was the author of the best-selling book XYZ. And, and they immediately asked her, yes, we would love to have you on the show. I've worked with thousands, so there's lots of things like that.
So now I had asked you originally to take out the best selling because I think, someone who hasn't maybe written something would say is, oh, how can I become bestseller? But there's some tricks to that. Would you agree there's just some tricks to becoming the bestseller or stuff like that? I mean, uh, can you talk to that a little bit?
Well, it's a system. I mean, to some extent, if you knew everything that I knew, and some of it I can tell, and some of it that I won't, but it'd be kind of like when you discovered there is no Santa Claus. That
Hmm.
it's just mom and dad putting the gifts under the tree.
Yeah.
It's kind of that kind of thing. Amazon is the only statistically driven bestseller list. All the rest of them are editorials. So New York Times takes a list and then they just say, these are who we've decided are the bestsellers. And it's really a reflection of Walmart made a big purchase, is really what the New York Times bestseller list is. Doesn't mean anybody ever got the book. Amazon is about books getting in the hands of an end user. And it's from there. Amazon is a search engine. It's a computer system that has an algorithm that makes those determinations. And because of my years in technology, and because I actually have a friend that wrote some of the underlying code, not specifically for Amazon, but for the new modern search engine, if you will. I understand the concept of relevance and what it takes in order for a thing to rank the way that it does. And so it's all about understanding that system and then operating within the rules the way that system works.
Yeah, I didn't know you at the time, Steve, and so I worked with a guy who was putting together the book, and then he asked me to write a chapter in the book, and then he worked with a publisher out of Vancouver, Canada, not a publisher, but someone like yourself, like a consultant who had done this, a lot, and what they did, they like you said, because they knew the system, the system, and they have different categories you can apply in, and then they have I know they made a major purchase of the book um, in a certain window of time, which allowed it to rank very, very as a bestseller at that point. So I mean I'll share my experience too when I wrote the chapter. I the first thing I would tell you is I really enjoyed the process because so my chapter is about 28 pages long, and every day, I'm sorry, I think it was every Friday, I would go to the coffee shop pre-COVID and write for an hour and a half, and then also edit my prior work for a little bit of time. And after about, I think it was after about 90 days or so, I had completed the work. Maybe I went more than once a week, but I think I remember at least once a week. And the chapter I wrote was about the trial and tribulations of building 6 companies over 25 years. And so it was great. Kind of, I loved the kind of looking back and kind of really getting down and writing. And I was lucky enough to be able to I've kept a diary my whole life of the businesses I've been involved with, and so it was fun going back and kind of look at my notes and kind of writing on that. So I mean, I really love the process. It just kind of got me away, and the whole reason I did it was 2 reasons. One was um, I wanted to see what it was like to be able to eventually write a full book, because when I retire, I thought I would write some more books, and this was my entree. I was able to write one chapter, right? And the second thing was, of course, it gave me some credibility. Uh, you know, I really kind of have, to be honest with you, some accolades. So it was just kind of another one. And but I was really happy at the end with the whole process that I did it. Now, do I want to do it again? No, not a chapter. But eventually it showed me that when I do the retire, that I'm really, really am going to like sitting down and writing. And, what I plan on doing is writing a different business book. And I hope what it allows me to do is to travel the world to speak at public speaking, which allows me to get, to stay active and to travel with my wife and to be out there. And so that was my experience. Now, I would just tell you the mistake I made was the guy who was publishing all of these chapters. I didn't think he did a good job of uh, vetting the other people who wrote the chapters. And I was really proud of my chapter, but I thought the other chapters that were in the book were not very good, and sometimes very, very self-serving. So, I'm just sharing my experience with you and with our listeners right now. That I was really glad I did it, and it was a lot of fun. It was a lot easier than I thought it would be as well. I mean, do you have anything to add to that, Steve?
Well, the issue with an anthology is it's only going to be as good as the weakest link. So the person who takes the
Yeah,
longest is going to be how long it's going to take to get the book out. If everybody did it in a week, then it would take a week. And if one guy takes a year, then everybody that did it the first week is waiting the whole next year for the next person. And you're right. I mean,
yeah,
because people have varied level of experience and talent, there's going to be that issue with it. Secondarily, is most people are not writers. You're kind of a rare individual that when you did the writing, you actually enjoyed it and aspire to do that more. Most people would find after about a third, maybe at the most, way through an anthology, that they hope that they never have to write anything ever again as long as they live. um, and
yeah, yeah.
in fact, when we do the anthologies, even those and all of the writing, I encourage people actually to do it via interview, because most of us know what we're talking
Yeah.
about. We can talk about things, but staring at that blank piece of paper, having the habit of going every week or whatever you did, to do the writing is a skill set that most people don't have, and it really shows its ugly face on when you've got you and 10 other people you're waiting on because of that.
Yeah, they did a good job with timing. They had heavy duty deadlines, and if you didn't meet the deadline, you're out, and that was pretty good. But um, and I think they had the same experience you have, where people, if you don't give them the deadlines, and they procrastinate. Um, I mean, the one thing that wasn't like, the other part about it was, like, my chapter was 28 pages long, and I was expecting them to narrow it down, right? Like, kind of edit it down. And then there were other chapters where, like, 9 pages, and they didn't edit mine down that much. They thought it was really good, but I'm like, you got a 28-page chapter, and then you got a 9-page chapter. It was a little bit, you know, not as good. So you do the anthologies as well. So if someone,
Yes.
so if one of the listeners said, I'd like to write a chapter, but I don't think I want to write a whole book. Could they come to you and say, I'd like to write a chapter, but I don't want to write a whole book?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And depending on the current time, I would either talk to them about how they can put together a group of like minded people to do each of them a chapter. Or sometimes I have anthologies that are already being worked on that they're looking for one additional author. So it just really depends.
Yeah. And, the other thing I would say, and it I would just tell you that I am very proud of that work I did. So like, listen, our lives are all short, right? And it's really kind of nice to kind of look back and say, I did this, I wrote this. And if you feel proud about it, it's just another thing that you can say I accomplished in my life. And and I think a lot of people who write either a book or a chapter or whatever, they usually have some experience because right because you kind of been there, done that. You got to be an expert to write about it, and it's kind of a way to get your thoughts and ideas down. And usually that also involves your accomplishments as well, because you got to be able to talk to that. And so I would tell you that it is something I am very proud of. That doing it was a lot of fun, and I really really enjoyed it. And you are right; it's interesting. I'm thinking about now of all my friends, all the business associates I know. It was interesting for you to say only 4% of the people actually write a book, because I don't really know anybody else who kind of wrote a chapter or a book. And so, even though it's become more popular, it's still a pretty unique thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Um,
So, go
yeah.
ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I mean, you should be proud of yourself because even just the number of people that start a book and never finish, just finishing is a huge accomplishment. So you should be proud of yourself.
Yeah, and I think it was also because it was quality work too. Like it's compelling story when people read it, they're like, wow, it was like it was had to do with the ups and downs of building a business and the trial and tribulations, and I even made a story into it. And I'm not really literary, so although I read a lot, I'm not a really good writer, but I have good ideas. So I was kind of happy with how that came out. So let's take a step back here. Let's say someone's listening right now and they say, I see some value in doing this, writing a book. Uh, what is kind of your first step?
Well, of course, the first step is just, having a conversation with me, see where they're at, how I can help them out. I definitely encourage everybody. Everybody does have a book. My granddaughter, who well, actually, she just turned 12. She wrote her first book at 9, and it was about meeting her best friend and, everything she knew at 9 years old, and it's a cute little story, but that is a perfect example of life. As we move on in life, you're going to know more and be better 5 years from now. But the things that you just went through, somebody else is struggling with that right now. And so, yeah, the first thing we would do is have a conversation. I created the URL askstevekid.com that goes straight to my schedule. People can just go there and book 15 minutes with me to talk about where they're at and, you know, what I can do to help them or where I can point them to get going to the next step for them. And, that's where we would start.
Yeah, yeah. So they have that meeting with you. I guess they kind of talk about an idea that they come up with, and then after that, what's the next step after that?
Well, of course, everything is going to be based on strategy. What's our definition of success for the book? Why are we doing it? Are you, like you had said, you want to encourage your ability to do travel and do speaking to pay for the travel? That makes perfect sense. You're not going to really make the money off of the book. It's the speaking engagements that you're going to get that are going to pay for all that.
Yeah.
So, what are we doing the book for? And then, who is the book for? And what is their need? Because ultimately, really, our books aren't for us, they're for the person that they're meant to serve. And so, we define that, and then we schedule a writing session. We start with whatever they do have. And like you said, I strongly encourage, I mean, Sir Richard Branson, that's how he does all his books, is just speak your words out, and let us take it and help you form it just from a conversation.
What do you do? Do you do an interview with the person, or does the person just record thoughts, or how does
Oh
that
no, I
work?
do an interview with them. We have a conversation via Zoom, and I'm actually walking them through a process. But the better it can feel like a casual conversation, the better.
Wow. Wow. And then, so in order to put a book together, how many sessions do you have to have of conversations?
Well, for the most part, most books we do them in one session. Takes us about an hour to an hour and a half to get the amount of content that we need for a book. Now, with that said, that's going to create a red flag for people. So let me answer that. Amazon, that sells all the books these days, has found that if a book is 100 pages, that's print pages, 100 pages or less, more than 60% of the people that get the book will finish the book. If it's between 101 and 200 pages, that drops to less than 20%. And if it goes over 200 pages, it's actually less than 3% of people that ever finish that book. And the point of our book is we want to take people on a journey and take them to a next step. And so we want to be writing a book that serves people where they're at. And that's how we actually operate as people. We learn things one at a time. We don't learn six things all at once. It'd be like taking math class and English class and history class and have all three teachers up front at the same time versus, each one of
Yeah.
them is an individual class.
Have you been involved with people who say you know, they really enjoyed the process and then they keep doing more and more books?
Oh yeah, I have people that have done, as much as 5 and 6 books, and a lot of my
Yeah.
authors come back to me and we redo second, third, fourth, fifth books with them.
Have you had any situations where someone has written, a couple books, and then a publisher actually, um, it catches their attention?
There's two sides to that coin. Technically speaking, because one of my good friends is an author agent, technically speaking, they're less publishing, traditional publishing companies are a little less critical of the book and the following for somebody who has never written a book versus somebody who already has written books. With that said, yeah, I mean, you're going to need a following. In order to get a book published through a traditional publisher, the first thing they're going to do is check your social media. And if you can't do a post anytime and get a minimum of 3,000 reach, it's a hard pass. They won't even go any further than that with you. So, writing a
Yeah.
book, 3 books, 5 books, and building an audience of people that really want to read your stuff, that is part of your proposal to them. It's like, look, I've got, these 5,000, these 10,000 raving fans that are looking for my next book. And then it becomes a much easier selling proposition to that traditional publisher.
So just to clarify, they would want to see at least, let's say in this case, 5,000 people who have signed up to your social media.
No, no, no. I'm not talking about followers. I'm talking about when you do a post,
Yeah.
that at
5,000 people will
least,
read it.
yeah, at least 3,000 people, no, no, don't just read it, but they actually interact with it.
Well,
And so you have to understand, statistically speaking, in social media, 90% of people are lurkers. So if you got 10 people that comment on your post, there are probably 90 people that saw it and did nothing with it. Well, and I
yeah.
should say that's if you get 10 likes.
Yeah.
That's about 90 people that saw it. And then 1% of people are the ones that actually will make a comment. So if you get one comment, again, that's basically that 100 people. You get one comment, 9 likes, and 90 people that they just saw it and moved on. So, that's why they're looking at that 3,000 number, is because that's actually a pretty huge reach.
Yeah, yeah. What about from a business perspective? Just say, let's forget the idea of becoming a published author, making money off the books, of course. Um, what do you think the value is? I mean, I know we touched upon it, but you know, of someone saying, you know what, I just like with you said you wanted to put it on your website, right? And so, what did that do for you?
Well, the power of publishing. I mean, Seth Godin said it the most succinctly I think I've ever heard said. He said, if you want to make money writing your book, then don't. But if you want to make money, you absolutely have to have a book. I can tell you from a marketing standpoint, your book is like creating a foundation for a house. If your house doesn't have a solid foundation, you don't have a good house. Same thing's true with your business. You need that credential. It goes so far beyond the education you have and the degrees you have to have been the guy who wrote the book on it.
Um, is it okay just to go to right to a PDF, or do you usually encourage people to get some hard copies of the book as well?
Well, I mean, these days, given how easy it is to go to kdp.amazon.com and publish your book, I
Yeah,
absolutely would recommend that they publish it. If for no other reason than from a marketing standpoint, if your book is listed at $15 on Amazon, and then you only ever give it away for free, you're giving people a $15 value.
yeah,
And that would be true if it was valued at $100. I mean, whatever that
yeah,
is, that's
yeah.
just some basic marketing stuff.
What does it cost like they do the books on demand, right? They'll print them on demand for you. Is that and how much does a book that normally would list for $15 cost? $3 to print?
It's $2.15 for the first 105 pages, and then it goes up in small increments per page thereafter. So if you were looking at a 200-page book, you'd probably be looking at about $3, give or
Yeah,
take.
yeah, yeah,
You're talking black and
yeah.
white. Color, if you want to put color pictures, even one color picture in it, now that becomes very expensive. It's about 6 times more to have even one color picture on the inside of your book. Not your cover, it'd still be a color cover, but the inside of your book.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting how the I was expecting when Kindle came out, and that I thought that the book formats would change more. Like it would be more interactive, more video, more uh it would change the book industry, but it really kind of hasn't, has it?
Well, and internet people have been trying to tell industries that they're going to totally demolish and do that with their industry. Back in the early days of the internet, they were telling the newspapers that there would never be any more newspapers because people can get their news via the internet now, and it hasn't happened. The truth of the matter is, there's something about the tactical nature of just picking up a good book and just reading it that we have ingrained in us. Maybe 100 years from now, maybe that'll be different. But right now, people actually, when you do an ebook, it makes the print book sell better.
Yeah, I could see where a lot of books it wouldn't like. I'm trying to think some of the best books I've ever read, like Titan, which is about John D. Rockefeller, was one of my favorite books of all time, and that was certainly prior to Kindle and anything like that. But you know, it would be great as I was reading for it to be able to have footage of John D. Rockefeller, you know, what his house was like in Calcutta, New York, and showing video of a walkthrough of his house, and showing what a Standard Oil's drilling, what they're well, it wasn't what they're drilling, but what the drilling of the oil was actually like back then, and they have video of it and stuff like that, and where it was integrated within the book, and I
Well, and a good modern author is actually doing that. A perfect example of that is the book Atomic Habits. And I apologize that I can't think who wrote that one, but it's a really great book, Atomic Habits. And what he does at the end of every chapter is he will say, go to Atomic Habits or any place where there should be a picture. Go to atomichabits.com/whatever. And you can put
Yeah.
all that interactive stuff, in your
Yeah.
ebook form, that'll be clickable, and then in print form, people can just be, ooh, I want to see that picture and go to the internet and do that. And a good modern author will do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, do you encourage your clients to do an outline, or do you just kind of jump them right on the phone for the
Well,
interview?
so I actually have 6 videos. We do definitely have an outline. It's a 4-step outline that is essentially the 4 components of every book in reality. Um, and I do give them both a video that walks them through all of that, as well as some follow-up videos that can help them begin to dive deeply into each of the concepts of that. Um, whether they do it or not, because one of the most fun things for me is pulling information out of people and interviewing them like that. We're going to get the content either way. Even from the people that are
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I'm not ready, I don't want to do it," and it's like, well, let's just give it a try. But yeah, there is
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
prep material that people that want to do that can.
Yeah. It's good. It makes it easy doing the interview. You're absolutely right. Most people can talk to things, but writing it is completely different. So I understand where you're coming from on that.
Yeah, I mean, if I were to say to you, tell me about how you felt at the end of that first business, whatever the outcome of it was, whether you sold it and made a profit or, it closed because, because business is closed. How did you feel? Tell me that story. It might take you a while to write that, but you could probably tell me that story right now.
Yeah. 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 Good stuff. Anything else? We have a couple minutes left. Anything else that you want to add, Steve?
Well, I mean, the important thing for people to understand is somebody's waiting on you. That very thing that we do so gracefully, so easily that we probably would never think to write a book about it because we're so good at it that it's just like, everybody knows how to do the dishes, or whatever that thing might be. There is somebody that is probably on Google right now searching for how do I do this thing? And they keep messing up because they don't have your information. And each of us is only as good as we take who we are and we share it with the world. Just kept to ourselves, it doesn't do anybody any good. I mean, it's like the greatest guitar player in the world. If he's only just playing in his basement, it doesn't really help anyone.
Yeah. Good stuff. All right. Well, I'm really glad we had this conversation with you because I think if anybody out there is thinking of listening, writing a book, and Steve would be a great person to talk to. So I'd like to thank so very much, Steve Kidd, for coming on to today's podcast. If you like today's podcast, please feel free to share it with a friend and also subscribe on your favorite podcasting app. And of course, if you're looking for a line of credit for your business, you can call us at 862-207-4118 or visit our website at fscreditline.com. Steve, if someone wants to get in touch with you, how would they go about doing that?
It's real easy. Just go to askstevekidd.com, AskStevekidd.com.
Great. And if our listeners are interested in getting any new business ideas, I tweet daily about lessons for business owners over 25 years of experience that I've had. I tweet at Halasnik, Halasnik. If you are curious about my book, it's on Amazon. It's called Crash and Learn, and you can get it at Amazon. Steve, thanks for coming on, and I also want to thank our listeners. And remember, the effort you put into writing a book is something that will stay with you for the rest of your life. And I would tell you from personal experience, I think you'll be really, really happy you did it. And the way Steve has it set up, it doesn't seem like it's going to be too difficult. So everybody have a great day. Stay safe, please.